You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves, a midwife who will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change. We are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating this space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were
Born wild. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. This is one of your hosts, Emma. Today, we have an awesome interview with Tracy. She's a local midwife in Sonoma County, and I hope that you enjoy the show.
Hi, Tracy. Welcome to the Born Wild podcast. Would you start us off by introducing yourself and maybe a little bit about your family, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, thanks. It's really nice to be here, be part of this. I always love anything that is birth related and sharing information with people. So happy to, be along this journey with
Great.
you. And my name's Tracy Lough. I'm a licensed midwife here in California, in Northern California. Right now I live in Occidental, and I'm currently working at Thrive Birth Center and doing home birth. So let's see, I have been doing this work for 19 years now. That's when I started, when my daughter was born into my arms. I knew that this was the work that I needed to be doing. I was currently getting a teaching credential and thought I wanted to be an elementary teacher because I loved children and babies so much growing up that I just felt like that was where I would end up. And when I had my daughter in my arms at home, I just knew that my job in this life is to empower families and women and help babies be born in a gentle and loving way. So I started the journey in 2002. I have 3 kids total right now, and they're ages 19, 15, and 9. And we live, here in Occidental. We're super happy to be here. I did my training down in Southern California in LA with 2 midwives at a practice called Home Birth Service of LA. And was doing births all around that area, driving and running around, checking moms and being part of lots and lots of births. And then really wanted to slow down when we had our 3rd baby at home. And so we made a huge shift and move over to Humboldt County. Mm-hmm. And we got a 5-acre piece of land and home and built a yurt on the property that would then become a birthing space for women and families to come and have their babies, and raised up our kids for 7 years there, and then came down to Occidental. So now we're down here on the next chapter of our lives and happy to be here.
Wow. So you first realized when you had your first child 19 years ago, how did you know about home birth from the get-go? Like, how did that come into your mind?
Yeah, so somehow I made it all the way through college, never having known that home birth or midwives existed.
Yeah.
And, I grew up with movies and birth being in the hospital and birth being big and kind of scary and fast and all of that. And I was living in Berkeley and studying for my teaching credential, and somebody left behind a book called Midwives, which I was really curious about and held on to for a while. My husband and I got married, and we moved to Yellowstone National Park to work in the park before becoming teachers at that stage. And I read the book, and then I was blown away. Yeah. And then I started finding every book I could find, like the Red Tent, or just seeking out everything I could read on the subject. And decided this is how I want to have a baby. I had no idea, like I said, that was an option. So we got pregnant after we got our teaching jobs, and we were on that path interviewing midwives, and also still a little nervous, because we didn't really know. And so we had been seeing a doctor as well in the beginning, and we kind of asked the doctor, like, what are your thoughts? What do you think about this? And He actually called us stupid and
Oh,
threw us out of the practice.
wow.
So that really made us step back and question everything even more because,
Yeah.
we would leave the midwives appointments that we were doing at the time because we were kind of doing some parallel care, and we would feel so good and seen and heard, and so the appointments were so thorough, and we were so involved and educated. And the 10-minute doctor appointment where like they barely touch my belly, they don't know who I am, and
Yeah.
he's telling me I'm stupid and kicking me out. So that was really big, and honestly a gift.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
blessing. Uh-huh.
yeah, so we went with our midwife, and we had this beautiful 4-hour birth from start to finish.
Wow.
And she showed up in the pushing stage, and left a couple hours later. And I'm like, wait, it's over like already? How can that be? So when I woke up in the morning, I was reading books. Like, I want to understand my labor, like where were the stages and what was happening. And I said to my husband, I think I want to be a midwife. And I was literally like getting my teaching credential, and he's like, okay. And I said, don't worry, it'll take me 10 years or so. So I went really slow. I really loved the journey. I became a doula and a childbirth educator. And then I assisted the midwife that was my midwife for years as her assistant, and, did hundreds of births before I even started midwifery school at that point. So that was an amazing time in my life. And had another, daughter in 2006, so 4 years later. And then when she turned 2, I started midwifery school. I'm like, I'm ready. And I started with National Midwifery Institute and worked with the same midwife that, was my midwife, and had, yeah, a really wonderful experience. A lot of running around and a lot of leaving my own 2 kids, which I'm sure a lot of midwives can relate who have families, and some guilt around that. And we decided we wanted to have one more. And so we also knew if we had 3 children and I wanted to be a midwife, that we needed to make a change. And so we got pregnant with my third, and really secretly kind of hoped that we would kind of do it on our own.
Uh-huh.
But had our midwife, who was amazing. She was a friend of mine who was a new midwife as well. So I helped her baby, I helped her at her birth.
Uh-huh.
And then a few months later, I was ready to have my baby. And his birth, my son's, was 1 hour start to finish.
Wow.
So she didn't make it. And, that dream that I had really, came true. She showed up right after, which was perfect. And my 9-year-old at the time really wanted to catch the baby. And I just looked in her eyes like, if you want to catch this baby, climb into the tub right now. And she reached over, and together her and I put our hands on this baby's head and delivered this baby up onto my chest. And
No,
it
I
was
have
really
goosebumps.
beautiful. My 3-year-old was circling the tub, spritzing essential oil, and my husband was a solid rock, looking ready, because I had told him, here's the Pitocin, here's what you need to do if I need anything. And he even had taken a neonatal resuscitation class because he had this fear that, like, oh, what if the midwife doesn't make it? Because I just seem to go faster and faster with each birth.
So they
And she
were
didn't
4 hours, and then what was the second?
2,
2 and then 1.
1.
Just half each time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like exactly half each time. Wow. So I have a question
Yeah.
about like your sisters or mom or any other women in your family. Has everybody kind of had fast births or
Yeah,
not?
my mom had all fast births as well. Her third was a little bit more of that wild card, which, thirds often are. So she had a few start-stop, beginnings, but then ultimately had a very fast birth as well. I was born in the hospital, and I was born with the Laboyer method, which at that time was pretty cool in the 70s. In order for my mom to have my dad present, she had to have a natural birth. And at the same time, this hospital was allowing women or families to choose if they wanted to do this method of the baby being born and then submerged into this tub of warm water. And so, you know, I grew up with my dad always sharing that story of, as soon as you came out, my hands were on you and you were in the warm water and you just relaxed and were so sweet. And like, he just felt like that, like, beginning, you know, was such a big moment. And I just always loved that. And I see that, right? I mean, that's what we do as midwives. We hold that beginning so sacred and with such reverence, so that these babies can just come out and be held and take everything in and gaze into their parents' eyes, you know, in a loving and
Can I
gentle
ask about that method and like what was the purpose behind it? Like what were they trying to see or do? Was it about like,
gentle.
yeah, just having like this gentle experience? So you were born on land and then put into water.
Yeah, so the tub, I guess a big tub was put at the end of the bed, the hospital bed. And as soon as you're born, you're put into the water. So
Interesting.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. So my grandmother was put, you know, she was put to sleep for her 2 births.
Right.
And, you know, then forceps were used to bring her daughter and son out into the world, and she woke up with a baby. My mom went on to have the hospital birth with the Laboyer method and a natural birth, only so my dad could be there. And then here I was, you know, going to have a baby and having all the options, and including home birth, you know, that was legal and yeah, available. And it was amazing. But my family was so scared that I was doing this at home, and it was a big deal. And it was hard because all my friends, you know, they couldn't quite understand why I was choosing this route, but it felt so right to me. Like many home birth families out there, like, you just know if this is the right way to do it. And it's not for everyone, but it is for many. And it should be an option, you know, that people are aware of, because most people just don't know, in the same way that I didn't know, you know, and could have easily been fed through the system of hospital birth and all of that.
Yeah. So then at what point did your practice come like surface for you, and when did you finally make it to thrive?
Yeah, so I in 2012 I was at the end of my apprenticeship, or I guess 2011 at this point still. I took my family, we went to Bali.
Ooh.
And I had done all my primary catches, or actually I still had a few left. But I really wanted more experience. I felt like before I'm out there on my own, like, I just want to feel so good in my hands and my heart that, like, I've got this, because it's such a big responsibility to have, you know, a mother and baby's life in your hand. So I decided to go to Bali and spend a summer there, and I took my family, and it was amazing. I worked with a woman named Robin Lim. She's an incredible human being who really took me under her wings in the way that I was wanting and needing, and also taught me so much more. Because the main midwife I worked with was a certified nurse midwife. And, you know, Robin just really had built this clinic in Bali, in the village of New Kuning, that brought in acupuncturists and Reiki masters and, you know, homeopathy and herbs. And, you know, my job when I got there, she's like, you've got to, you know, fill up chlorophyll water for the mother coming in, and then go pick flowers when the birth is imminent to put on the placenta. And, you know, we would sing the babies out. We would sing the Gayatri mantra. And it was beautiful. And, you know, there's so much ceremony in Bali anyway, with the Hindu religion, and reverence for everything they're doing. And so it was incredible. And then to have my kids alongside, and the Balinese loved children, and so they were included and they were welcomed. And so my daughter got to attend births and be part of it. And I remember one night I was sitting with a laboring mom, and she was sleeping with the bidons, the midwives there, and she suddenly I hear the mantra being sung, and I'm going, what's going on? Like, I'm with the laboring mom, and then my daughter flies in. I just got to do a birth with the midwives, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it was just so precious, and like, what a gift to be 9 years old and like be seeing these births. And it's like what I wanted her to grow up. I wanted my two daughters to grow up with birth as a normal thing that we go through, this rite of passage that, we all can do and that we're all meant to do. And so that just felt so good to me. And then they would watch, the families ride off on their motorbikes shortly after, and there they went. so that felt so like such an amazing gift to experience that. And then I came back, I got licensed with the California Medical Board, and then like a month later had my son down in Topanga Canyon. And then 3 months after he was born, we decided to move, or we had decided before he was born, but we were moving to Humboldt County to just slow down, simplify our life. And, really both my husband and I, we wanted to be able to work, and we wanted to be able to be a part of raising our children. And that was important to us. And so we moved up there, and my husband, he had started a public Waldorf school down in Southern California. So that was something he was, working around the clock basically for 5 years, really getting up and going. And then when we moved and kind of passed that torch, it felt right. It felt so good to put our family first and start over with like this big piece of land, and we built this big garden, and we got farm animals and sheep and goats and pigs and chickens, and we just got to watch births happening all the time. And we built this yurt that we're thinking, okay, this will be a birthing space for people to come and have babies on our land, and they can wander through the redwood forest. And then births were happening like once or twice a month. And when my son was ready for those preschool years, there was no outdoor nature schools or Waldorf preschools that were more in nature that we wanted. So we decided, why don't we make our own? So we had our yurt that we turned into a really sweet preschool called Forest and Farm that my husband and I and another woman, Jen, ran together. And so the children would come, and, we would bake bread in the cob oven, and we'd go work in the garden and wander through the forest and storytell. And if a birth was happening, then the children would just move to an all-day outdoor school, and they would be in the forest, and the laboring mom would be in the yurt. And, sometimes you'd hear like the recorder and children's laughing out there. And it was such an inspiration of like, this is what you're doing it for, right? This little being one day is going to be a little kiddo running around in your home. So
Motivational really children.
Yeah, so magical the way you paint it too. I'm curious how you got known, because it's one, a big deal being a brand new midwife, and two, being a big deal being in a brand new place. Like, how do women even know about you? Because there's a lot of like students and newer midwives too who listen to the podcast where that is a big question for them. Like, how do I even start once I'm licensed?
When I got up to Humboldt, I took a class with a woman named Jan Perone, and she had been teaching midwifery, or she had been teaching forever, but she had been a midwife, I think, since the 70s, and she was hardcore. She was an amazing human being. And she's like, what are you going to do that's different? How are you going to stand out? And I loved it. I have this little baby in my arms, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm a new midwife. Like, it was pretty saturated at the time with midwives who'd been there and established. And so I thought, like, what am I going to do differently? But it didn't really matter, because I always had this vision of a birthing space on my land for my own really for my own family, so that one, I wasn't leaving my children, and two, so that my family, my kids were growing up with birth around them, which is what I kind of wanted. So that in itself was different. And so I thought, oh yeah, I've got an out of hospital option for people to come out in nature, like something really different. So that was, really unique. And then also when I was in Bali, I had learned about cord burning. And cord burning was done there. It was first done, Robin, first brought it to the, people she was working with after a tsunami, when, women are birthing and sterile scissors were hard to come by, right? So burning the cord cauterizes the cord, so it's sterile, and it's a really beautiful ceremony. So you take 2 beeswax candles, you have a little wooden burn box, and you hold the cord over the box, and you just hold the candles, the flames to each other, and the wax drips into the box, and it takes about 5 or 10 minutes, and it's a beautiful time to take a big out breath after you've had a baby, and just ground and take it in what you just did. And it's usually, the way that I did it when I came back was I would do it hours after the birth. So it was kind of the last thing we did before leaving. And sing to the baby, or make wishes for the baby, or just whatever felt right for each family. And so I thought, okay, well, that's something different as well. So I'll bring that to this.
I have a question about the cord, because the last 2 families I've supported, they both did cord burning, and it had happened once when I was a student, but I just vaguely remembered it. And it was beautiful. It was like a closing ceremony, because we did it as like one of the last things. It was really, really sweet. And also their cords fell off so soon. And so I was curious if you, because I only have those 2 experiences, do you find that cords fall off sooner because they're like sucked the moisture out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell families, that I usually see it fall off quicker. I also feel like what you're giving the baby, that warmth, is really good for the digestive system and setting your baby up for nursing, for success there. And it's calming, and the baby's usually in the mom's arms or nursing, or sleeping at that point. And yeah, I love involving siblings and having, everybody just circled around and staring at this little new human
And
that's
it does the
here.
like snap, crackle, popping sound.
Yeah, you'll hear little gases.
Yeah, the first one, it did the little popping sound. The second one, it went pop and it blew the flames out. We were like, whoa.
Yeah.
We're
So
like,
I usually warn the families before that's a really normal thing, because it could surprise you for a minute. But yeah, so
do you find that you do a lot of cord burning at Thrive too, or is it mostly in your home birth?
Unfortunately, we can't, because of it being like a commercial building,
right?
That's a fire alarm system, right? It would start spraying water everywhere if we lit candles. So I offer it to the home birth clients that we do there, and this year particularly, there's quite a few. So for whatever reason, more people are wanting to do it at home, and so it's a nice thing to offer. Yeah. And it depends on someone's birth, it depends on the family. But I find that most people really, really love the experience after, and find it to be such a beautiful closing, like you said, to the birth.
What makes the difference between whether somebody hires you for their home or birth center? Because it's obviously the same midwife, it's not like you're choosing between different midwives necessarily. But so what makes the difference? Is it just that they don't have a good setup for their home, or why?
You mean why some families choose home versus birth center? So when I was in Humboldt, I feel like a lot of people chose the birth yurt, who maybe didn't have the best home setup or lived with other people or lived really rurally and wanted to be closer to a hospital. Maybe they lived an hour out in the middle of nowhere. And I did do a lot of really rural births where, you're like, okay, the closest helicopter pad or place for, and those, are pretty wild.
Mhm.
And so it was always nice if those people chose to come to the yurt too. And down here, I feel like, I think probably at Thrive Birth Center, you sort of get people who are maybe sort of in between hospital and home and, maybe like the hospital or feeling more comfortable being closer to a hospital. And so the birth centers are really beautiful. It feels like a spa in there, right? So it's a really beautiful space that's 3 minutes from a hospital and the ambulance can be there in a minute. So I think that gives a lot of people comfort in that way.
Yeah. When you came to our area and you had met Morgan, and Morgan and I can't remember if we had worked together or, I think we were doing assists for each other. And she had mentioned that you had mentioned the assist fee was maybe different up in Humboldt, either Humboldt or LA or something like that. And that she was going to start paying her assists more. And that changed my practice because I was like, it always just didn't feel like enough, but that's what everyone did. And so I want to thank you just for bringing that awareness to me to bump my prices up that I pay my assists because it just feels more, it feels good giving it and it feels really good receiving it.
Yeah. Right. And we do so much. I mean, sometimes as an assistant, you show up and sometimes you're there for like 10 hours before the birth even ends up happening. Sometimes it's quick, but I really value assistance. I've done for many years up in Humboldt, it was myself and my apprentice. And that was great because we felt like a team and we could read each other really well. And I didn't need to bring in an assistant at that point. But whenever I do, I really, they're on call, they're working, they're ready. And then, if you need them, if there's something that needs to be done, you really value them being by your side. So.
Have you worked with a student up there where you are now or?
So we at Thrive Birth Center, there usually is a student and involved. So the first student who was there, I worked with for about a year, and now our second student, her name's Hannah, and she works over with Morgan as well. And Morgan is our assistant over there right now. So it's been really sweet to keep that connection. And, I've done lots of births now with Hannah and Morgan, home births in the community. And that's home birth is really where my heart is. But at the same time, when I in moving here, it was a big decision to think about, like, could I work at a birth center? And, I really like to get to know my clients and I like to keep a relationship forever. So, I'm like, I want to be bonded. I want to like know them. I want to know how they met as a couple and, just all the details. And at a birth center, it's a little trickier. So, but at the same time, I've got one in college, one in high school, and one in elementary school. And I don't want to miss things with my kids, and as a midwife or midwives, for all of you out there listening, or doulas, it is so hard to miss holidays or birthdays or, what we give up, even like simple things that, just they'll remember. And it's a sacrifice we make, and we do it because we love it and we are called to this work. And I love every minute of being with every family, but at the same time, it's hard. It's hard when your little one is like, do you have to leave? Or like you're gone for days. So.
Yeah, I know. I said to my husband and my parents who watch the kids when I'm gone that unless it's an emergency, don't let me know what's going on, because one time they had let me know that my daughter had a fever and my heart was like not fully at the birth after I knew that, because I knew she was in good hands, but I just was so pulled. I was like, you tell me after I get home. I don't need anything distracting me, unless I need to leave. Yeah. And so that was an agreement we have, just if I message you, everything is perfect. That's all you can respond. Everything's perfect, and I'll talk about it when I get home.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. And having a supportive partner, it's when I was in LA, most of the midwives, the student midwives or midwives were single,
Mm.
single moms. And I just thought that is not what I want to be. I love my husband, and he has also been so patient and supportive of me on this journey. And I'm so grateful that I've got him to rely on, that he'll step up, and he knows like, oh, it might be days before I return. But and there's been times when I'm like, okay, I'm doing too much and I need to pull back. And it's about finding that balance constantly. And that's part of the reason we moved to Humboldt, was again to find the balance. Like, we're being pulled too thin, and we're seeing with our family that a shift needs to happen. And so not to be afraid to make a shift.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you about that, because I brought it up to my husband when we first got together. I'm like, most midwives are divorced, so let's talk about that, and every time I come home from a birth, we talk like, what didn't work and how can we make it so it doesn't happen again, hopefully. Yeah, and so that he can still do his job, and he feels supportive when I'm gone. But was there any words of wisdom that you have besides what you just said to anyone listening who's just trying to make it work with their partner and their business?
Yeah,
Like things that work for you?
I think having date nights,
Mhm.
times of real connection, even if it's like a spontaneous one, because you're like, everything's quiet with all the moms, I can do it. And yeah, just really making time to connect together. And, I tell that to all the families I work with too, because having a baby, it's like you kind of, the focus becomes the baby, and it's easy for your relationship to be left behind. And so, even sometimes not sleeping in the same bed anymore, and all whatever that looks like. But yeah, so making date nights together to me is what has really helped. And then yeah, finding the time to just communicate, like, what do you need, what would be helpful, because this is what I do, and it is unpredictable, and I need to be ready to run and all of that. And so setting up the things that would help your
Yeah.
partner so they're
Like
ready.
the event we just had at your home that you weren't even able to attend because you were at a birth.
Yeah.
But you had this like chocolate tort ready to go. And I was like, oh, she baked and she's not even here.
Right. So exactly. So that's how it works as a midwife, right? When you have the time, you're like, what can I do to prepare? Because I have no idea what their future holds. And same with my kids in school. I'm like, I really want to volunteer, but I can't commit. But I am perfect, like last minute. What do you need? I will be there. If I can do it, you can depend on me. But if I can't, then I can't. And you just know that. So yeah, exactly.
I put everything in my car that I would need for like the next 2 days worth of activities, just in case I'm like gone. And then I'm like, oh gosh, I don't have time to go home. But if I had it with me, I could go right there. Yeah, you just always have to be ready.
Yeah, always kind of thinking ahead, which yeah, not everybody can do, but yeah, so your mind is going. And on that same note, it's really important as a midwife to take breaks, right? Because I know a lot of midwives that burn out, and I never wanted to be a midwife that burned out, because I love the work so much, and I love what I do, and I love working with families and making a difference and being part of these babies' lives. And so I've always tried to like take the summer off, or take, December off, so that I knew like, 1 year, maybe I would take that month off, or 1 year I'd take November off during my years as a home birth midwife, so that I just knew like I could have the break, be off call, be with family, whatever that look like, or go on a vacation where you can fully let go, right? Because even on vacation, sometimes it's like someone will miscarry and you're like over on the side and, helping them through, and like it doesn't really end, but you really can detach finally, and just trust that like somebody else will, whoever you set up or whatever, you put in place it will be okay. But it's important to take time to rejuvenate, and then you come back and you miss it and you love it, and you
Yeah.
feel good again.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the reason we started this podcast is Leah, who couldn't join us today, her and I would always play like devil's advocate with each other. And we were always trying to just question why we do what we're doing and how necessary it actually is, and how to like continuously do less and give back her power. And so I just wanted to check in with you. I know you had mentioned, basically free birthing your last child unintentionally, but intentionally in your heart. I don't know if anyone could have made it to you, but having that experience and then being a midwife and supporting families, how do you find the balance between like licensure and what families want and don't want, and do you have that within your practice with other midwives where you're pressing the boundaries of what is actually normal and time frames and all that? Just anything you'd like to share around that.
yeah, that's a good question. Yes.
And maybe not a legal question.
Yeah, well, so the one thing that I've always felt is I don't want to lose my license because I love this work so much. So I'm not willing to risk that. And I would say I'm kind of a rule follower, so just in general, so it's hard for me not to go too far outside of that. But that being said, in Humboldt County, there are a lot of people who do not want to go to the hospital, and there's a lot of fear for Western medicine or doctors or trauma, and I really, really want to support them. And there's a lot of people who wanted to do unassisted births there. And they would come and interview with me or maybe start with me and then want to do an unassisted. And I have attended a few unassisted births where they had me sort of there, but not there, or coming late. I did one where like I was like literally in the room next door, but I could see I was there, and then came in when the baby was born, just like really low and quiet, just to make sure all was well. But I also saw people lose their babies in Humboldt. And we had one year where there was like 3 or 4 babies that didn't make it during unassisted births. And, I just, as a midwife, I tell people like, you're going to do what feels right to you. And we don't know what your story is going to be. And most of the time it's going to be perfect, right? Our bodies know what we're doing. We've got this. And when I had my baby unassisted, I was blissed out, right? That oxytocin, it is flowing. Like the world was perfect for me. And I was so happy. And he was pretty dusky and it was okay. But I honestly felt like he's fine. Like everything is perfect. He's here. And I really like, had I been bleeding in the tub, like I was on another planet at that moment in a beautiful way, right? In the way that we want all mothers to be.
Yeah.
And had there been a need for help for me or for my son, it would have pulled me way out of that, right? And then to have to work on your own baby or, which I was prepared to do. I was like, if I need to do anything, I can. And so I'm when it comes to that, I feel like education is most important. I want people to know that everything can look perfect right up until the end. And then sometimes a baby just crashes and sometimes they need help, or sometimes a hemorrhage happens that you're like, I was not expecting that at all. Yeah. And so it is nice to have somebody there who can make sure that you and your baby are okay. that being said, when it comes to other times, I've worked with a few people who have wanted to do home birth after 2 cesareans.
Mhm.
And, one of them felt like, I will go and push this baby out by a tree if I have to. If nobody will be next to me, I'm doing it on my own. And I felt like, well, that's not safe. You should have somebody there, right? Like to be listening to that baby, to be making sure you're okay, to be able to do something or start an IV or call 911, like whatever, if something is needed. So after a lot of thought, I decided I was willing to support that client, and then proceeded to support another client as well who had 2 cesareans before. In the community of midwives, it was definitely pushing, what our sort of community standard was up in Humboldt. But at the same time, I had no problem supporting somebody if they were like, this is what I want to do. And I fully understand the risk
Yeah.
and am choosing this path, then I support them,
Yeah.
as long as they are fully informed of everything, then it is their choice and their right. And I believe that. So same with unassisted. It's, you have to understand all of it. And if you still choose, then that is your choice.
Yeah. Yeah. What I've found when talking to families interested in unassisted birth, or that's like a question in their mind that they could do that, most of the time, some women actually do want to be alone or just with their family, but I found most of the time they would like a wise woman there. They just don't know who they can trust to not transfer them when they don't feel they're at risk, like this mom you're talking about with the VBAC after 2 cesareans, to like give them the full power and just like be able to hold space and be there for the emergencies that you were talking about. Yeah, but not cause the issue and then come in on their white horse and save the day, yeah, so that's what I found when talking to families. Most of them don't actually want to be alone. They just want someone they can trust.
Right. And again, that's building that relationship with your midwife and finding the right midwife for you, because there's a lot of different midwives out there, right? Like I've been to births where I'm like, whoa, I would not have expected that. Or, they are like way more conservative. To jump to a hospital transport. But no, I mean, my feeling is like, yes, we're going to move if that's what's safest for you or your baby. But at the same time, we can talk about options. We can, see, as long as baby and mom, everything is okay, then we don't have to rush. And we're going to talk through and figure out other ways to stay home. And I had one mom who, she wanted the unassisted, but she hired me. And then I had sort of thought like, I wonder if she'll call and just say like, my baby's born.
Mhm.
And in the end, and she called, and after a very long time of laboring, I came over, and I truly feel like had I not, then she would have gone to the hospital. She would have been at the hospital. So I was able to help her stay home and have a baby by doing all the tricks that we have, right? Like we have so many tools as midwives. We are so educated and what are ways to help this baby move or turn a baby, or, who's posterior, or or just help a mom emotionally move through, or, whatever it looks like, or pull out our homeopathy or our herbs or cranial sacral, or, bring in an acupuncture, whatever it is, we know what will help potentially to change the story.
Yeah. And it's like the gift you've given your kids, where we talk about the village and how every woman helped every woman. And so by the time it was your turn, you had already witnessed and knew all the tricks that, so you just trusted birth and you had already lived birth. And most of the time, women, when they give birth, it's their first time experiencing it other than TV. So yeah, if they're not really in their body, or they need some other ideas, it just doesn't come as natural. Yeah. Well, it was so great to talk to you. We have 3 questions that we always ask everyone at the end of interviews.
Okay.
And so the first one is, if you could go back and talk to your teenage self and give her any advice, what would it be?
I would say, sometimes I question, like, I wish I would have, like, how could I have found out about this earlier, to be on my path? But I also feel like it unfolded just how it needed to. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just maybe try, like, I feel like I did try to branch out and meet other people, but you're also a teenager and stuck at home and in your community. I would say, I don't know, that's
You would
a
have whispered,
hard,
home birth, research home
yeah,
birth. No.
right? Like those 1800 midwives, like, yeah, that you read about in history class. Like,
Yeah.
why didn't you think about this could be another way to have a baby?
But like you're saying, sometimes you really need that lived experience to be like, whoa, to break open and realize. Yeah.
And I knew I loved babies. So yeah, maybe going, like, learning a little bit more medical. I guess that would be it. Like doing something a little more, like exploring the medical side. When I was a teenager, I used to faint if someone took my pulse because I didn't like veins and blood. And my family told me, oh, you could never be a nurse, right? Or a doctor, right? Like that's like not your thing. And here I am now, right? Like I love veins and I love, like it's, yeah, so that's what my advice would have been, like not to shut off that just because you feel like you've put yourself in a box as like somebody who can't deal with blood.
Explore it.
Right.
And same with people who are afraid of needles, right? Midwives who are afraid of needles, who then have to learn how to draw blood and do all the things. And so yeah, so that one, a little some more medical education.
Yeah. Well, the second question is, if your belly button had a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, cool. If the belly button had a superpower. Okay. Just to open and let the light shine in, right, to our wombs and just fill ourselves with the reminder that we have everything that we need within, right? That we don't need to always be seeking and searching, that we have the answers within. So just opening up and letting the light come in to remind us of that.
Beautiful.
Okay, last question. What is your most unpopular opinion?
Okay, these are good. You guys are good. My most unpopular opinion. With the general public, it would probably be consuming your placenta. Like, my kids are like, really? You're making another placenta in the kitchen? Like, do you have to do this all the time?
Don't let my friends know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We actually, my college daughter, her boyfriend, it just came up at conversation with his family that like she grew up with placentas in the kitchen and they were like, just a little shocked. Their eyes got a little big. And I'm like, well, let me tell you why. And by the end, they were like, okay, yeah, now I understand. So, I would say probably, yeah, the passion around placentas, which all you midwives and doulas out there, I know you get it. So
yeah, it's not dinner conversation for every family, and sometimes we forget that.
It definitely is in our house, but maybe not by my kids' choice. But I always try to come home from every birth, talk about it with my kids. I want them to grow up knowing, and they do know, right? Because we come home sometimes sad or sometimes elated or sometimes exhausted. And so I always share, and my son's favorite thing is like, let me guess, is it a boy or a girl? Or,
just too. There's usually one child crying at my house because my daughter wants it to be a girl and he wants it to be a boy.
Oh my gosh, so sweet, right? So I love that. I mean, what a gift to our own kids as midwives and doulas and people in this field that we get to give that.
Yeah. One of my daughter's favorite things to do is to pretend to give birth on the bed. She'll do it for hours. She'll just be on the bed, hands and knees, giving birth over and over again.
And remind me how old she is? She's
5.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I love that, right? And, when we had the yurt in Humboldt, the babies were lots and lots of babies were born in this year, and all the preschool kids, are playing. And then the family would come out the door and be like, look, a baby was born at your school. And then those babies started to grow, and then they would start coming to the school. And I remember sitting in circle and just looking around, and I'm like, you were born right there. You were born right there. You were born in the bathroom on the toilet. You were born over here. And, it was so beautiful and magical. So yeah, what a gift, right?
Your whole journey has sounded like a little fairy tale. It's really sweet. If we have listeners who want to get a hold of you and connect with you, do you have any social media or websites that you want to list, and I can add it to the show notes?
My website is yourvillagemidwife.com. I'm totally open to always talking with any aspiring midwives or people who have questions, or, finding the balance of how do you do this as a mother and midwife. And so, yes, I'm available and here and happy to share and talk with anyone. So on my website is my phone number and email. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so glad this worked out. I know we're all very busy and we appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks so much, both of you.
Bye.
All right, have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks everybody for listening. You can find us at Born Wild Podcast on Instagram. For inquiries or feedback, you can email us at bornwildpodcast@gmail.com. You can find me, Emma Ray, on Instagram at Emma Ray, REA. Sophia at sophiabirth.com.
And me, Leah, at Bay Area Home Birth.
We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us reach more people. And as always, stay wild.